So let's talk about breakdowns. And no, I don't mean the things I've been having nightly since March 12th. Attention cast and crew, this is your half-hour call. Half hour to the top of the show. Half hour, please. Alrighty friends, we are back with another episode of the Almost Complete Guide to Stage Management. If you were just seeing my face for the first time, welcome, I'm so glad you're here. My name is Kent, and you are watching Half Hour Call. Scene breakdowns are one of the most deceptively simple documents that you're going to create as a stage manager. At its core, the purpose of a scene breakdown is to let you and everyone else know which scenes contain which actors as which characters. But in order to do that, we have to define what a scene actually is. Now, I know that seems like a really simple question, but stay with me. Sometimes the playwright will do this work for you and break the scenes up themselves, and that can be a really great place to start. However, if we only go off of what the playwright gives us, the scene breakdown for the play that goes wrong would look like this. And that's not very helpful for anybody. So sometimes it's going to be up to you and the director to define what the scenes are within an act. And you can define scene changes in several different ways. You can define them as a change in setting, a change in time, a tone or mood shift, a new beat, or even a subject change, or anytime a character enters or exits and there's a new collection of actors on stage. And if you delineate a new scene every time a character enters or exits, congratulations, you've just made what is known as a French scene breakdown. But at the end of the day, what you're really wanting to think about are the rehearsal blocks. What is the director going to be able to work on in a 55 or 80-minute rehearsal block so that you can structure your day accordingly? You're going to want to find divisions that allow you to respect the actor's time when you're scheduling, but also support the director's artistic process. This division of scenes is going to help you and the director facilitate rehearsal in the most efficient and streamlined manner possible. So once we divide up the play that goes wrong into functional rehearsal blocks, it goes from looking like this to looking like this. And that's a lot more helpful. But regardless of whether the playwright has divided the scenes or whether you're dividing them yourself, you want to make sure that you are providing descriptive identifiers for each scene that allow everyone to know exactly what part of the show you're talking about, regardless of whether they have a script in their hand or not. Because think about it, once the actors don't have scripts in their hand, saying Act 1 Scene 8 is a lot less helpful than saying the Sincerely Me scene. As you're making these identifiers, some things you can use to think about are the location of the scene, like the kitchen scene or the movie theater scene. If there's an iconic opening line of dialogue in the scene. If it's a musical, there might be a song that's sung in the scene, and you could call the whole scene based on that song. Or you can summarize the action of the scene in 2 to 3 words, like the confrontation scene or dinner scene. The only thing that really matters is that everyone is on the same page and knows exactly what you mean when you say an identifier, and the easiest way to make that happen is to start introducing them into the rehearsal room really early in the process. Formatting for this document is usually pretty simple. It's either a list or a spreadsheet table. I will usually make both of these. The list is usually more helpful for the director and actors, and then the spreadsheet is more helpful for technical crew and for stage managers. The spreadsheet or table is really helpful to have on hand because let's say Joe calls you and says that he's running an hour late for rehearsal. Well, instead of wasting that hour, you can whip out the spreadsheet and say, oh, look, Joe is in these 5 scenes. We have these other actors here, so we can do these scenes instead for the first chunk of rehearsal. The second reason it's super helpful is that if you do it right, it can really easily be translated into an entrance-exit sheet, which is something we'll be talking about later. Now, as always, you're going to need to evaluate the needs of the show and adapt your paperwork to that specific show. For example, in the play that goes wrong, the character Trevor is the board op and is usually visible the entire time. However, sometimes he's not interacting with the action of the play, and it would be a huge waste of that actor's time for him to show up every day to rehearsal just because he's sitting in the box playing on his phone during the show. The character of the stage manager, Annie, is also in a whole bunch of scenes, but only for a couple of seconds each. So it would probably again be a waste of time to call her for the entire scene work just so she can show up and swap one prop. So in this case, what I've chosen to do is mark those characters with an asterisk so I know to go back and look at their involvement of the scene to see if we actually need to call them for the entire rehearsal block, or if we can call them halfway through or maybe even closer to the end to just put in their couple of cameos in that scene. Similar things to consider including on the document are if someone's doing a voiceover off stage, if they're hiding and not really speaking, or anything else where it's not just a traditional person in the scene. And that's pretty much it. Like I said earlier, it's a deceptively simple document. It's easy to understand, it's easy to make, it's easy to format, but at the same time, if you don't do it in a way that works for your process and for your show, you're just setting yourself up for a lot of headache later on. Down in the description below, there are links to examples of both a list version and a spreadsheet version for Act 1 of The Play That Goes Wrong. So if you're playing along at home and want to try your hand at this, go ahead and do the same for Act 1 of Dear Evan Hansen. As always, I do not have a Patreon and I do not plan on making a Patreon, so if this fact bums you out, please hit that like button and then give the money you would have given me to one of these awesome organizations instead. The Actors Fund, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, or my personal favorite option, go buy a ticket and see some live theater at a local equity regional theater, because it is the absolute best way to learn. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and doing your part to make technical theater training more accessible. I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Kent, and this has been your half-hour call. Do you have a question or an idea for a video? If you do, send me an email at askhalfhourcall@gmail.com. That's askhalfhourcall@gmail.com.